Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Election Day now just 27 days away, the first and only vice presidential debate. It will start 3 hours from now and we will be bringing it to you live. And then at the conclusion, we'll discuss what we just heard. Tonight, we will discuss what to expect from the debate with ABC News political director Rick Klein. We'll also give some of the more new shocking details just revealed about the administration's policy of intentionally separating children. We'll also discuss that with a reporter from Reuters who's been following the story since the beginning. Then Mike McCurry, he is here to talk about the messaging that's come out of this White House about the president's health and also the stalled COVID stimulus bill. Mike McCurry was Bill Clinton's press secretary during the Lewinsky scandal, so he knows more than a thing or two about what it's like to deal with dicey situations, but nonetheless what we, the people, have a right to know. But I want to begin with the condition of the President of the United States, that as he battles COVID. Now, the White House physician says the President's vital signs are stable. He's been symptom-free for 24 hours and hasn't had a fever since the weekend. But I'd be more than remiss if I didn't point out that it is the same doctor that has provided, to put it politely, incomplete and even misleading information since the President first checked into Walter Reed. The President also returned to work at the Oval Office this afternoon. He was briefed about, among other things, the stimulus talks and a hurricane, Hurricane Delta, which is churning right off the Gulf of Mexico. That means a president that we still believe is contagious is in the Oval Office with people, despite the fact that health experts say that this man should be in isolation. All this comes as the U.S. has now topped 211,000 COVID deaths. Most states are seeing, unfortunately, an uptick in cases. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he says if people do not continue, or for some start to wear masks and socially distance, the numbers of fatalities could nearly double.
Sadly, we have 210,000 deaths now. The models tell us that if we do not do the kinds of things that we're talking about in the cold of the fall and the winter, we could have from 300,000 to 400,000 deaths. That would be just so tragic if that happens.
Again, he's talking about in just the next few months that we could reach that number potentially. The outbreak, it continues to spread at the White House. Top Trump advisor Stephen Miller, just the latest to test positive. He, you may remember, is one of the hardliners that helped to come up with some of the cruelest and most punitive immigration policies, which we're going to discuss later in the program. Miller joins at least 20 others who now have contracted the virus. That includes the press secretary, a military valet, 2 housekeepers, 4 press aides, and at least 3 members of the White House press corps because of the irresponsibility of this administration. In fact, the entire island of Taiwan is a frame of reference. The population north of 23 million people. That entire island has had fewer cases over the past week than 1,600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Get your arms around that. So as we head into the home stretch of this presidential campaign, the stakes of this particular race at this particular time could not be higher. We are dealing, of course, with the pandemic, and we're dealing with a president who continues to downplay it, even as he himself battles the virus that he once called a hoax. There is racial unrest in this country, stoked by our president, and that same president won't even say he will accept the results of an election as he intentionally tries to sow chaos and confusion. Okay, in a few hours, we're going to watch the debate, and I will ask you what I've asked you to do for every debate. Consider the candidates, yes, for their fitness for office. But tonight, do something different. Even more consequential, I believe, is take a look at these candidates and consider the consequences that the winning ticket will have on the future of this republic. And I'm not hyping the stakes because I believe that's what it is. I do not recognize so much of the America I thought I knew just a few years ago. I never thought I would live to see a day that our very democracy could be threatened. But the ugliness that has lifelong friends no longer speaking to one another, the selfishness of so many of my fellow Americans to not even care enough to wear a mask, the idiocy of many to subscribe to conspiracy theories that are too bizarre to even explain, the prideful indifference to medicine and science, and the people who now align themselves with those that preach hatred to those whose skin is darker, religion is different, or love someone that this mob deems unworthy, is as shocking to me as it is depressing. Yesterday, Joe Biden, who I do believe will be our next president, he spoke to the divisions plaguing us, and he did so very tellingly from the hallowed grounds of Gettysburg, where Americans famously once took up arms against one another.
Here, on this sacred ground, Abraham Lincoln reimagined America itself. Here, a president of the United States spoke of the price of division and the meaning of sacrifice. And he taught us this: a house divided could not stand. That is a great and timeless truth. Today, once again, we are a house divided. But that, my friends, can no longer be. We are facing too many crises. We have too much work to do. We have too bright a future to have it shipwrecked on the shoals of anger and hate and division.
His words were hopeful, but they were also a warning. He's referencing the Civil War. So, I now want you to listen to what General Hayden is. And let me tell you who General Hayden is. He's a retired four-star general. He ran the NSA. He was the director of national intelligence. He ran the CIA. He's a lifelong Republican. He served administrations for presidents from both parties. Listen to the warning he gives and the stakes he believes November 3rd holds.
If there's another term for President Trump, I don't know what happens to America. Truth is really important, but especially in intelligence. President Trump doesn't care about facts. President Trump doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't listen to his experts. I absolutely disagree with some of Biden's policies, but that's not important. What's important is the United States, and I'm supporting Joe Biden. Biden is a good man. Donald Trump is not.
And now listen to what the most recent former First Lady says about Donald Trump.
They're stoking fears about Black and brown Americans, lying about how minorities will destroy the suburbs, whipping up violence and intimidation, and they're pinning it all on what's been an overwhelmingly peaceful movement for racial solidarity. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
You know what's shocking about that clip is that you know she's right. She's calling the sitting president of the United States a racist, and there is no basis to disagree. Now that's not more newsworthy, and because it's not, that's chilling, because we accept it as fact, and he is our commander-in-chief. Okay, now I know better than anybody about the polling data, and every polling metric says this ugliness is losing those who may have looked the other way last election. I do believe that if a free and a fair election were held today, Trump, he would lose and he would receive the overdue and overwhelming rebuke he so richly deserves. But I'm going to give you a few poll numbers. And when you look at these numbers, you'll understand the sense of dread I hold for the next chapter of American history. Only a little more than half say they believe this election will be fair and honest. And more than half believe we will see an uptick in violence as a result of the election. And less than half say America will agree on who is legitimately elected our president. Now, I think I speak for you when I say we look at those numbers and we fear about division and we hope for reconciliation. Trump looks at those numbers and he wonders how we can foment more red versus blue. He wonders how he can also create more doubt into the election's legitimacy. You don't have to wonder what's in his head. I'll give him this. He says it. He's told you any outcome other than his victory is evidence of fraud. You know the whole line, heads I win, tails you lose? The President of the United States says it out loud. He's already encouraged illegality for supporters to vote twice, and he urged them to intimidate other voters. He urged state elected acolytes to suppress the vote in every state in our union. He's lied to his blind followers that if he loses, his opponent will come for their guns, their jobs, even their faith. My president says these things. Donald Trump, and I say this without a scintilla of doubt, he wants chaos because he knows he's going to lose. He doesn't care if we hurt one another if it gets him just to tomorrow. So again, I am concerned, but I do believe right will prevail in November or even in November 15th, however long it takes to count. But I do believe, and I do worry, what this unpatriotic shell of a man will do before he is shown the door. All right, when we come back, one-time White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry, he'll join us to discuss how this White House is handling the info it's sharing and not sharing about the president's condition. I'll give you a hint. Mike ain't impressed.